The passage of time can blur the line between your yard and your neighbor's, but what do you do when you need to find the property line before beginning your next construction project? We asked a city inspector.
You need to find your property pin, and they're usually located in the back corner of your property, like this one. This is an existing old one. A lot of them could be buried. They could be covered up by your block wall. They could be, removed from somebody grading the property. So that's why a surveyor is the best way to go as far as locating. The builder in this situation transferred that property pin because it's on the other side of the fence to this side and placed it in the wall so he can string his line along the property so that they can determine the setbacks of the structure. Both ends, you need to find the pins because you cannot determine where that property line is from fences. Fences are put in after the fact a lot of times, so you can't use the fence as a property line measurement. They require 3 foot is our minimum setback from property line due to fire jumping properties. So each property here has a 3 foot setback. This property has 3 foot, that property has 3 foot, so we have a 6 foot total separation between structures so fire doesn't jump from one building to the other. All residential areas are not the same. You have a 3 foot setback in some areas, 5 foot in others, 10 foot, 3-7. There's a lot of different setback requirements per our zoning code depending on the area that you live in. It would solve a lot of property disputes when you locate your property pins and know exactly where your property stops and where the other person's property begins.
For more information, visit the Planning and Development website at phoenix.gov/PDD or call 602-262-7811. Bogie Latiner is not your average master mechanic, so she needed a space for her growing auto repair business on Melrose and 7th Avenue that showcases her unique vision for women in a male-dominated industry while making her customers feel at home. Sina Mathis has the story.
Bogie Latiner didn't set out to bust down the auto shop door for women. She just wanted to fix her own car.
I did not grow up around cars. I didn't like cars. It wasn't part of my culture growing up. But when I got my first car at 16, it was a Volkswagen Bug, and it was a hunk of junk, and it broke a lot. And I always felt really vulnerable when I was bringing it in for service. I didn't like the way that felt. And so I started learning about cars, mostly just to feel less vulnerable.
She signed up for auto shop in high school, restored her ride, and hit the road for college.
I realized that I missed working on cars. I was finding myself educating women a lot at school, so teaching my friends how to check their oil and change tires and that kind of stuff.
So she traded her law school dreams to enter a world of guys, grease, and gears. 12 years later, the certified master mechanic is one of the stars of All Girls Garage on Discovery's Velocity channel. And she runs her own show, 180 Degree Auto, at its newest location near downtown Phoenix.
I wanted to create a space that went over and above to make our customers feel comfortable, at home, at ease. We didn't want it to feel like an auto repair shop coming in here.
But first, she needed to find the right building for her growing business.
We knew we wanted to stay in the neighborhood. We love Melrose, we love being close to downtown, and just this neighborhood is really vibrant. It has a lot of good energy, a lot of other entrepreneurs that support one another, and I really enjoy that. So when we outgrew our space down the street, we knew we wanted to stay close by. I looked for about a year. We looked at a number of different buildings, and when we found this one, it was the right size, it was the right location. It needed a lot of love. It was in really rough shape, but it was perfect. Otherwise, we knew we could make it into our home.
Old buildings often come with big surprises, so she turned to Planning and Development's Office of Customer Advocacy.
We worked with a number of people with the city. Jason Blakely in particular was incredibly helpful. We had a number of issues with the building as we dug in. We found a lot of permitting issues and just all sorts of fun stuff. It was a can of worms. It's an old building. It was built in stages over the years. I didn't feel like I was just a number or you know, just some file sitting on his desk. I actually felt like he was engaged and knew what we were doing and understood and was working with us to help navigate the process as best as possible.
This particular project, once we realized that there was some issues with the permit history, we needed to develop a game plan how we were going to move forward. And one of the challenges that came up is there were some variances that were going to be required.
The original garage was constructed without proper permits, and it was too close to the property line, a violation of the zoning ordinance.
Being that it was already built, they didn't meet those, so we had to go through the zoning administrator to request a variance to those setbacks. The design team had to do some forensic investigation on the structural components of the service bays.
We had to undermine some footings, we had to core drill some concrete to determine what the building, how the building was constructed. And so that took a little bit of effort to determine what was there and how we structurally engineer to meet current codes. We've performed quite a bit of structural improvements on the service bay side, you know, to get it to its current condition. So by phasing the project, the city allowed us really to move forward with construction and also get the business operating, which at the end of the day is the most important thing.
The city's self-certification program allowed the architects to certify their own plans rather than go through the city's plan review process, so they could begin construction right away.
Normal plan review process, you know, can run anywhere from, you know, a month and a half to 2 months. But if you're able to get in and get a permit within 2-3 days, you know, you're working within a week, so that's a huge benefit.
It was huge. We decided to take the project into 2 phases, the administration side and the service bay side, but we really needed the project to start construction so that we can get in and start business from a cash flow perspective. So it was huge for us to split the project up, self-certify the phase 1, start construction while we were finishing the plans on the phase 2. It was very important.
But what makes this project really special is the way it looks and feels.
Obviously, the automotive industry is not a very green industry. There's a lot of things that we can't avoid, but we're trying to make it a little bit less brown, at least. And then inside this space, we basically stripped the building down to bare bones. And then most of the materials that you see are all things that were reclaimed from other projects. The contractor that we teamed up with was phenomenal, really latched onto our vision and took it and ran with it and cleaned out his warehouse. All of these awesome materials that were laying around just waiting for a new home.
We find a lot of beauty in these old structures that many people just put them in the garbage can and start fresh, and I think Bogey had the vision to really work with the structure, and when we first walked through the space, we saw a lot of potential to create some great architecture.
There were definitely bumps and definitely times where I wanted to, you know, go home and cry. Given that, I think it couldn't have gone any smoother. I love fixing cars, and that piece of it's very important to me, but what I also love and what I'm really passionate about is educating the society kind of as a whole in the community that women are capable of things that are bigger and different than what they're traditionally perceived as being capable of.
And this philosophy is embedded in the custom-made reception desk that greets her customers.
Local artist Christine Casano put together a unique piece for us that has embedded car parts, gears, and whatnot that she then drew over. What she really was trying to accomplish was the contrast of industrial versus the softer, more delicate. There's flowers integrated into this hard metal and concrete object, and that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish here.
You can live in a historic home and conserve energy at the same time, and the first place to look is often the windows. You can replace your windows or restore and weatherize the ones you have, but there are certain guidelines you must follow if you live in a historic home. Everything you need to know can be found at phoenix.gov/historic, including this comprehensive guide to window repair and replacement for historic properties. Now here's a look at one Willo homeowner who used the guide to restore the 1920 wood windows on his bungalow.
I've done extensive research. I also have a few friends that own a couple of door and window companies too, and they were all for replacing, you know. And all the research that I've done, it's, you know, for one, it's definitely more green to go this route.
The big reason he wanted to save the windows rather than replace them?
the look of the old growth timber. I mean, it's the nice tight grain pattern, and you just can't see it in most of the newer woods. You can't find it anymore. You find it in landfills, unfortunately, but it's a more stable and sustainable product, you know, and there's less off-gassing from the old windows compared to the new windows.
The challenge was making single-pane windows as energy efficient as possible.
The biggest problem is air leakage, so I have definitely added additional lumber, and I salvage a lot of old growth door jambs and things that I rip out of homes, and as I try and reuse the lumber where I can, and what I'm doing is basically adding a channel so I can insert the Q-lawn into the channel. It is a plastic weather strip that is a foam padded protection. It's got a rigid edge on it so I can insert it here and it doesn't move. The problem with most stick-on, you know, it reaches a certain temperature and they start to fall off.
It does take a bit more effort to restore than replace, but James believes it is more than worth it.
We've averaged roughly 10 hours per window. It's a little rough right now over 80 years of paint, and you know, we did go through the EPA guidelines of removing lead paint and all that, but the craftsmanship alone is amazing. I believe that, you know, it's a brand new window after I'm finished with it.
For more information on repair and replacement of windows for historic properties in Phoenix, visit phoenix.gov/historic and click on the energy efficiencies and windows box at the bottom of the screen. Here's a look ahead at some of the projects we're following for the next episode of the Building Phoenix Show.
We're working with Mary Beth of Desert Song Yoga, and she asked us to help her on the acquisition and the redevelopment of the property. That's what our specialty is. I love the scale and proportion of it. You know, these old union halls are sort of unique through Phoenix. You find them sort of peppered throughout neighborhoods, and the whole indoor-outdoor opportunity here. And you know, it's just a part of our heritage. We're not a very old city, but you know, we have our heritage, and I think it's a worthy building worth saving.
We knew as soon as we got on the property, this is it. We wanted it in a neighborhood. It's on 20th Street, centrally located. People can come from Tempe, Scottsdale very easily. We have people from all over the valley that come to us. It's a great reuse of a building that already has really good energy.
See how a former Ducati dealership was transformed from this to this.
This has been an unbelievable experience. Doing something like this is, you'd think would be much easier since the walls are all up, and as a matter of fact, it's probably been more difficult.
Well, thank you for joining me for this episode of the Building Phoenix Show. And until the next show, to be the first to know what's developing in the city of Phoenix, just follow us on Twitter, of course, @BuildingPHX. I'm Michael Hammett. You stay safe, and remember, building codes and proper inspections save lives. We'll see you on the next Building Phoenix Show.